don't know if I made a video on this or not, but I picked up this manure spreader a while back. It was pretty rusty and it didn't have a floor. It was all rotted out. It did have walls, but they were rotten. And you can see like just how bad the rust is there. So I got the chains over here. The chains are still good. So these are just it's a flat chain. So if you move these over, then you can slide the links out. Let's see if I can slide that out. Anyway, they will slide out. If they're a little rusty, then sometimes they don't. I got paint all over my hands. So I'm gonna work on getting the chains back on today. So I pulled all the old rusted, or all the old wood off the sides. It is an International Harvester. There's the other piece. I want to say there was like a 130, so I'm assuming that's a 130 bushel spreader, but PTO driven. So I got it. It didn't have the front section of PTO, so I actually took it to the local farm equipment place, and because I was thinking they'd be able to maybe disconnect it or something, but they ended up having to just cut it off because they couldn't find a part. It's so old. And then they welded me up a new PTO, and then I just had to cut it to length for what I wanted. And then I had them throw this on there too because the jack was all broke. So I got that done, and I actually tested it on the tractor, and it was turning. You have gear selectors, and once I get the walls put back on, I'll kind of show you how that works. But PTO goes back here to a gearbox, and you can see in here they actually had like welded something on to reinforce that. And then down here you can see they welded an angle on, and there's been some welds here. So I don't know, the gearbox isn't froze up, it turns. I'll probably end up draining the gear oil out here. Looks like there's another plug there, and making sure that it's all full of fresh oil before I run it any further. I did put grease in all the Zerks except for I found one that wouldn't take grease, so I'll replace that. Anyway, so when you pull the levers, this will slide down, and then this little fin right here will actually catch. This goes up and down with the gears, and it will clank that over, which causes the chains to pull at a certain rate. And so if you want the chains to go faster or slower, or if you want to disengage, this is the thing to disengage. So you can pull this, and that'll pull this clutch out. Let's see if I run these backwards. There. So if you pull this clutch lever, basically it will disengage the beaters so that when you have your PTO running, it won't engage those. I don't really care about that feature because I can always just disengage it or engage it with the tractor. But anyway, so you can see that when I start turning the beaters, it'll start turning that chain. And I had to detension that when I pulled all the old wood off, so it's kind of completely apart. But, so this was all just really rusty. I pressure washed it off. I think I'm gonna paint the tires white, and then I have the sideboards that I painted white, so it'll be red and white, kind of International Harvester colors. Stick with that theme, I guess. Here's the levers that you'll end up pulling, and they move those, which then in turn do that. So I got some of this Rust-Oleum high performance. It's oil based, so it is a mess putting on. But so rust prevention, industrial finish. I just wanted something that would keep it from rusting any further and then stop what was there, and that's what this stuff's supposed to do. And then an oil base is gonna hopefully hold up a lot better, especially if you're putting manure in. It's really corrosive, but if I try to keep it clean, keep it out of the weather, hopefully it'll last quite a while. So anyway, yeah, basically I'm gonna replace the floor. I got one board cut just to make sure it was the right length. I'll pull the chains up, and then that way I can get the chains in, because they got to run underneath. And so I'll have them run underneath and then just drape them until I get the floor on. Then I can fold the chains over onto the floor and then hook them back together, rather than having to try to pull them all the way through, which would be just a pain in the butt if I put the floor on first. So you can see this one was kind of bent. This one was actually bent up, and so I had to like beat that back down and try to straighten it up. But I laid a board across there and they're all level now. So it's just a matter of putting the wood and the chains back in there and kind of piecing it back together. I'll show you the sides I was working on painting. So I just got them kind of laid out in here. And I just use a regular latex acrylic. It's not an oil-based paint on those. And I was gonna actually do the sides out of dimensional lumber to make them really beefy, but when I cut the first one and I went to put it back just to kind of fit it to see how it would fit, I was gonna do the sides out of 2x6, and what happens is this here, the gap that it's made for in between the verticals, all of these verticals, is made for 1/2 inch. And then even worse, I'll show you on this side here. So it actually butts against this, and when you look down, that's made for 1/2 inch plywood. So instead of trying to finagle 2x and either notch them on each vertical so they would only have 1/2 inch facing out, or like trying to run a groove down here and like route out, you know, a joint there, I decided, you know, I'll just put plywood on there, and if it lasts another 20 years, it'll probably be longer than I'm here anyway. As far as on this farm will be, hopefully, well, you never know. But anyway, if I end up having to replace it at that point, so be it. It's 1/2 inch plywood. I think that's it. Anyway, so hopefully I can get things back together pretty easy and get this going. Oh, one more thing I was gonna say. Well, maybe you guys know. All right, so when I was running it, there's a bearing here, and there's no grease zerk on that bearing. It looks like a sealed bearing, and I'm not sure, but it started to kind of smoke a bit, and so I think it's all dried out. So I'm gonna try pulling this off here and just see if that comes apart and I can repack it, cool. If not, then I'll have to get a new bearing put on here, which I'm not quite sure how that's gonna go, because hopefully if I pull that off, then this shaft, you can see it's actually like, hopefully it slips. So when I pull that apart, hopefully that whole thing will slide out. If not, then I'm kind of up the creek and I'll have to figure something else out. Maybe just, you know, cutting it, having a new bearing, slide that on, and then have to weld it back on or something. I'll let you know how that turns out, and then see if I can get another shot if I get these chains pulled on. All right, well, I got the chains pulled through. So, and just left them long, and I'll pull them up over the top of the gear drive. Here's a better look, maybe from the inside. So that gearbox turns this, and that's on like a up and down kind of a, that goes up and down, and then that ratchets that, and that drives this. So it's pretty, look at that spring, okay. Yeah, so that will keep, this just keeps it from spinning back the other way. Pretty old technology, but good. So I got first board in there, and I got it drilled, and I've just got a couple of bolts. I haven't put all the bolts in because I'm just kind of getting everything pieced together loose. And then the way these holes lined up, it works for 2x8, 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 and then you end up with, on the end, it's about a 3.5 inch gap there. So I'm gonna end up ripping one of these down on the table saw to get that last gap. But before I put that one in, I gotta put the sides in because they are actually pinched over based on how the old one was put together. I don't know why that is, but they have the tabs there to help reinforce the sides. So I'm gonna put it back together the way that it was built. And then I just drape the chains over the top. So once I get that done, I'll pull those over my boards, and then there's tensioners there, so I'll make sure they're running straight because you don't want to get these off kilter. So I've got this next one clamped in, and then I just take from underneath and I'll start a drill hole in each hole. That's how I'll line it up. Then I'll unclamp the board, flip it around, and then drill all the holes from the top. That way it's easier, and keep going. So progress. All right, well, I got the door shut, so the light's not very good, but that's one of the plywood panels. So then another 8-foot section will get me to the end, but this one's all goofy because I had to drill holes and get it in there. And then the bolts, the carriage bolts I have here are a little bit too long, and I don't like there. And then up the sides here, I don't want a whole bunch sticking out. So I'm gonna go get some new ones before I go further. But you can see I got the floor in, except for as soon as I get the walls down there, then I'll pull this chain back up. I had to flop it down so I could finagle that plywood in. And then I'll cut the last board to go what that distance is down that end. Same for here. That'll take care of the floor and the walls. And then the only thing I'll have left to do is the front here. So the front actually has an angle, which they're over here. And so this angle, this one will go on this side, but essentially the angle bolts to the side like that, and then that way it has basically a ramped sloped section here, so the manure will slide down onto the track. And if I want to get real cute, I'll have like a little piece of rubber belt, or like a light conveyor belt type deal that will flex. So then when the apron chains come around, it will basically flex it up and then seal it back down so nothing falls out. But most of the manure I spread is really dry, so I'm not really worried about it like oozing out. If I was spreading sloppy stuff, then I would really worry about that. And then the other thing that I will probably end up doing, so if you've ever spread with any of these, what happens is the beaters are going around. So as it feeds your manure in, it flips all the manure up out and sprays it over. But when you get to the end of it, it ends up throwing it back towards the tractor. And so you'll notice that like some of them will actually have like a slop gate that closes, and then you open it. Well, what that does is it kind of shields the manure from going that way. And I think what I'll do is end up making kind of like a, maybe like a homemade version and run 2 vertical boards with, that way I can have a sheet of plywood or something that I can raise up and pin it there. And then that way that'll act as kind of a makeshift gate. We'll see how it works. I'm not committed to that, but the other thing I found, interestingly enough, is I got to this board here and I was like, wow, I am not lining up. And so I pulled another measurement, which I should have double checked before I started, but I'm actually about 1 inch wider at the back than the front. And my thought is that's probably the design of it, to make sure that things don't bind as it gets down here, that it's actually easier. So it's a narrower there. And if it's similar with truck beds, they're actually tapered. So, all right, well, we'll keep poking away at this. All right, I should take a little video just to update. I've got the side panels on. Got those all finished up. Got the floor in and the chains are connected. I had to get another piece of plywood here, but I've drilled the holes and the brackets are over there. And I just painted this so it's drying. I did spin it a few times just to make sure, and it seems like everything's turning fine. This chain is, it's not in terrible shape. It's pretty rusty, but I think it'll be fine. Once I get everything done, I'll run it with the tractor a bit and take some oil, used oil, and like a fruit sprayer, and just spray the chains, spray the deck, spray the sides, just get a good coat of oil on it, kind of help everything stay protected. I still need to see about draining that gear oil out and putting some fresh oil in. I'm working on painting the wheels with that same Rust-Oleum rust inhibitor stuff, just to hopefully keep everything from getting worse. I'm not expecting, you know, brand new. It's an old manure spreader, but you can see that wheel, like it's rusted, but if I can just keep it from getting any worse. And then, you know, so far the tires are still holding there, so we'll leave those alone until they go. Probably my luck, it'll be the first heavy load I put in it and it'll blow out a tire or something. Oh well. What else was I gonna say? I gotta re-tension that chain, and this bracket will go on here to gives the levers something to bite on. Anyway, it's coming along. Had to re-drill a few holes in the wood where it was either there was a bolt that was totally rusted in there, or I don't know what, but anyway. Turning out pretty decent.